started with today's episode, I would like to quickly read you our podcast disclaimer. This podcast is for educational purposes only, and it is not to substitute for professional care by a doctor or other qualified medical professional. You should always speak with your physician or other healthcare professionals before doing any fasting, changing your diet in any way, taking or adjusting any medications or supplements, or adopting any treatment plan for a health problem. The use of any other products or services purchased by you as a result of this podcast does not create a healthcare provider-patient relationship between you and any of the experts affiliated with this podcast. Any information and statements regarding dietary supplements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. All right, and now we'll get started with today's episode. Hi, everyone. It's Megan Ramos here with another episode of the Fasting Method podcast. In today's episode, I'm going to answer your questions. We are now accepting questions from our listeners. Please go to the show notes where you'll be able to see a link to a Google Form document. In that Google Form document, you can fill out your questions and our team will organize them so we can go through them during one of these sessions. We'll be answering questions on a month-by-month basis. So hurry up, send them in. I look forward to tackling them in an upcoming episode. Our first question for today is from Rose in Edinburgh. Rose asks, do you have any tips for getting better sleep while fasting? Poor sleep while fasting is one of the most common side effects. It usually happens when we're brand new to fasting or when we start to lengthen our fasts. We find that we feel pretty energetic in the evening time when we'd rather be sleeping because we know we have a busy day ahead. Now, why does this happen? This happens because our body produces this counter-regulatory hormone called noradrenaline. Noradrenaline is part of the fasting response in the body, and it helps us burn body fat and maintain our resting metabolic rate. We love noradrenaline, but when our levels go higher than our baseline, it can throw our system off for a bit, and it takes a while to acclimate. Now, if you are having sleep issues in your fasting journey, if you stay consistent with your fasting protocol, your body will adapt and you will have better sleep again. So my number one tip to everybody is be consistent with your fasting protocol. The more consistent you are with it, the sooner the sleep is going to improve. Now, every now and then, we've got a lot going on in our lives and we can't afford to have poor sleep. And sleep is absolutely the foundation. You need to have good sleep in order to be healthy and to function and to fast successfully. So if we are going through a stressful time where we can't afford to have poor sleep, then start off with some time restricted eating or some shorter fasts like 24 hours. Once things settle down in your personal life or professional life, then you can start to extend your fasts. I still to this day experience insomnia when I do extended fasting, say for 5 days or 7 days. So I never plan my big fasts around crazy work events, a lot of travel, or we've got a lot going on in our personal lives. I always pick kind of a regular week, not too relaxed, but not too busy. And that is what works best for me and so many of the individuals that I've worked with. Something else that people find to be quite beneficial is the use of magnesium supplementation. Now, of course, you've always got to talk to your healthcare provider about supplementation and whether magnesium is appropriate for you. But over 80% of the population is actually deficient in magnesium. So most providers do recommend it. Magnesium has a very calming effect on our nerves, whereas noradrenaline has a very invigorating effect on our nerves. So individuals find that supplementing with it can help counteract some of the effects of the noradrenaline and make it easier for them to go to sleep. There are different ways to supplement with magnesium. You can take it orally in a supplement, such as magnesium biglycinate, or you can take it topically, transdermally, through something like an Epsom salt bath or magnesium lotions or oils. Either way, many individuals, when they're fasting, find that doing a combination of both often works best. And I encourage people who are doing extended fasting, start doing it a few days before your fast and continue doing it throughout those first few days of your fast. A lot of the time when we do extended fasting, we tend to leave these tips to later on in the fast once we start to experience side effects. But when it comes to extended fasting, you've got to get ahead of it. Magnesium is one of those things. If you want to improve your sleep or make it less disruptive during your extended fast, you've got to take your magnesium earlier on. What is common is people will take an oral supplement and they will take an Epsom salt bath, foot soak, or they'll use some form of oil, gel, or lotion. I am a huge fan of doing both. I do both on a regular basis, fasting phases or not fasting phases. And I do find that it does help minimize sleep disruption. So check out magnesium supplementation. One last thing about magnesium is that you should not take supplementation around your thyroid medication. You want to make sure you have at least 3 or 4 hours of space between taking your thyroid medication and taking any form of magnesium supplementation, including the use of Epsom salts or oils or lotions. In optimal practice, you would actually have a 7-hour window. So if you take your thyroid medication in the morning, taking your magnesium later on in the day, having your bath at nighttime, using lotion before you go to bed, taking your supplements around the dinner hour, that can really help make sure that you're not having any interference with the magnesium from preventing that thyroid hormone from being properly absorbed. Question number 2 comes from Maria in Toronto. Is it possible to do a 10-day water fast without medical supervision? How long can one fast without needing medical supervision? Maria, I wish there were some more resources for you there in Toronto, and I have news. There are some coming soon. We'll have a special announcement in a month or two, but there will be a place where you can go and get proper medical supervision in Toronto, and you can get all of the support and education, resources, coaching you need online through thefastingmethod.com. But there will be medical management. Dr. Fung is busy back home in Toronto trying to coordinate that. So hang in there. But in general, you should not do any fast without medical supervision. Now, a 10-day water fast can be complicated, especially if you're on medications, say for diabetes, diuretic medications, blood pressure medications. These medications, they need to be managed to prevent serious side effects from occurring. And not everybody is suitable to do a 10-day fast or even do any form of extended fasting. So it's always good to talk with someone who is knowledgeable to make sure that you're a proper candidate. Even if you have a doctor who's willing to support you but not knowledgeable, you can join into a single coaching session and get some advice on what you should be asking or talking to your healthcare professional about. Question number 3 comes from Mable in Montreal. While fasting for 36 to 72 hours, the quick guides on your website say to eat lunch and dinner the following day. Is this a requirement or a suggestion, as I find it's easier to do OMAD at dinner time after work? This is a really great question. So when we do fasting and we're very efficient at burning body fat, we are fueling off of all that body fat, and we don't necessarily feel that hungry on our eating days. So you'll see on our website in our quick guide section, all of our fasting diagrams usually show an eating day is 2 meals, lunch and dinner. You could do breakfast and lunch. You could do brunch and early dinner or late lunch. There's all different ways to do it, but it usually shows 2 meals a day. You'll also find that we are not big fans of traditional 1 meal a day where people just do dinner to dinner. So when you're doing a 36-hour fast, a 36-hour fast is a day of fasting followed by a day of eating. Typically, a 36-hour fast is breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then a 42-hour fast would be lunch and dinner. And then a 48-hour fast would just be dinner. That is usually what I encourage people to do when they find themselves in the same situation as Mable here. If you're just not able to eat more than one meal a day because you're such an incredible fat burning machine that you're providing yourself with so much fuel, then get into doing the 48-hour fast. I would definitely do that. So most people will do a 48-hour fast at the start of the work week and at the end of the work week. You'll see on our quick guides over at thefastdaymethod.com that we have someone have dinner, say on Sunday, fast to dinner on Tuesday, eat Wednesday, start your fast on Wednesday after dinner into dinner on Friday. So you eat Sunday dinner, Tuesday dinner, you eat Wednesday, then from Wednesday dinner, you don't need to get into Friday dinner, and then Saturday and Sunday are eating days. Sometimes we hear from our members that they can't eat 2 or 3 meals on that Wednesday. They've just burned so much fat the first half of their fast, and they just can't stomach the thought of it. So they'll do a 48, a 24, and a 48. So if you feel like you can only eat one meal, then do the 48s. You can sub in that 24 in the middle. It's much better to do that than to get into a 1 meal a day, everyday pattern. So 48s are your go-to fast. Mix in the 24s on the eating day, and that would be perfectly okay to do if it feels good for you. And again, make sure to always check with your healthcare provider. Lucilei from the Netherlands is asking about fasting and constipation. How do I deal with it when skipping breakfast? Fasting and constipation can be a little bit tricky. We really need to ask ourselves, are we truly constipated? Because if we're not eating as much, there's less to go out. So are you experiencing physical discomfort? Now, a lot of people will hear taking fiber can help with constipation, and in some cases it does. So having some psyllium husk in water or some chia seeds in water might help get things going. So you could have that for breakfast on your fasting or eating days if you do find fiber to be helpful. But I do want to exercise caution. Sometimes our intestines are a little bit slow to move, and that is the cause of constipation. So adding in fiber like chia seeds or psyllium husk can further slow things down and worsen constipation. So if you do take either of those to try to help get things moving and you feel more constipated afterwards, you should stop. Fiber is not going to be your friend to help alleviate your constipation. Now, usually when the GI tract is that slow, there's something going on with the thyroid. Our thyroids control the speed of our digestive tract. So if our thyroid is underactive, then our digestive tract is slower. If our thyroid is overactive, then our digestive tract is fast. So depending on our symptoms, it can help identify potential thyroid issues. Now, sometimes people don't know if they have a thyroid issue or not, or sometimes their thyroid values look normal, but they're not optimal and they can still experience some side effects. So we want to try to help support our thyroid. Going and getting blood work, talking to your healthcare provider, taking any supplementation we might need to help either through medication or sometimes additional supplementation helps. Things like iron, taking selenium, having iodine, depending on the individual, can really help support the thyroid. It's important to note that taking these things, if you don't need them, can be counterproductive. So you do want to go get some blood work done, look at your iodine, your selenium levels, as well as your iron stores. And if there's anything off in any of those categories, supplementation can help. You can supplement through supplements or you can supplement through food. So things like seaweed are a great source of iodine. Brazil nuts are a great source of selenium. I actually eat 2 Brazil nuts every eating day to help get my selenium in to support my thyroid. So get some good blood work done and see if there's something going on with the thyroid. Often when we get the thyroid sorted out, The GI tract starts to get moving, and people who have had chronic constipation end up seeing improvements. I actually fell into this boat. I would go to the hospital with chronic constipation when it became too unbearable, and fixing my thyroid has definitely alleviated it. Other things that you can do during this time is magnesium citrate. So, talk to your healthcare provider about whether or not you should be taking magnesium citrate. Magnesium citrate definitely helps and is quite gentle. Your bowels don't become dependent on it, and you get a good magnesium infusion too, since so many of us are deficient in magnesium and it's critical for improving insulin sensitivity. The next question comes from Dawn in British Columbia. I am doing a 36 to 42-hour therapeutic fast 3 times a week to reverse my type 2 diabetes. Once I have done that, what should my maintenance routine be? We just held our first ever maintenance masterclass at the fasting method. It was really exciting, and I can't wait to do it again. We do have it on the calendar for November of this year, but if there's interest, I told our community that I would be willing to do it in July as well. But for those of you who missed it, you can still reach out to our team at info@thefastingmethod.com and get access to the lessons. We won't have the live sessions available for you to participate in, but we will have the lessons available for you to watch. We also, in our community, have a 4-part maintenance webinar series that I created. So, in these lessons, what we really do is teach you to assess your metabolic health to see if you are ready or not for maintenance. We go over what blood tests and other tests you should be doing and what those results should be. And then we have a standard protocol for getting into maintenance and figuring out what is going to work best for you. In general, if you don't have the medical testing done, the lab tests and the other tests, like the body composition assessment, you can try to scale your fast back, say to 3 24-hour fasts, and just see how you maintain. Are you maintaining, or are you seeing the scale creep up? Now, it's normal to see about a 5-pound fluctuation here and there. You don't want to see it much more significant than that. So if you stay within that 5-pound zone, then 24s sounds like it's a good spot for you. And after a few months, I would try to eliminate 124 slowly till you're just doing once a week, 24-hour fast, and always see if you stay within that 5-pound range. If the weight does come back up, you know your body isn't ready for maintenance yet, and you can go back to doing the 36s and 42s for another month or two, and then test out the 24s again. The next question is from Jane in Toronto. We have a lot of Canadians who are writing in for this episode. I am so homesick. It's great to hear that there's a lot of fasting still going on back home. Jane's question asks, how do I balance staying adequately hydrated and not having to visit the washroom every 1 to 2 hours? I find it difficult to leave home as I'm constantly trying to find the nearest washroom. The worst is having to get up 3 or 4 times in the night and having interrupted sleep because of it. This is a great question. And my first piece of feedback is it's important to know that hydration is not just water, it's water and it's salt. And the salt helps us retain adequate water, what our body needs. If we're just drinking a lot of water, we're just constantly going to be trying to flush it out of our system. And when that happens, we lose a lot of electrolytes too. It can make us more thirsty and it can make us hungry. It can make fasting very difficult. But if we're taking water and some salt, then we tend to have water be a bit retained, the appropriate amount though, what is healthy. So you're not always running to the bathroom. Now, it is appropriate to have to urinate every 2 hours. That's a sign that you are adequately hydrated. If you find yourself rushing to the bathroom every 45 or 60 minutes, it could be a little bit too much, and especially getting up that often throughout the night. So working on trying to see if you are getting in enough of the electrolytes as well as the water throughout the day can help minimize that. A lot of times men and women, all of us may need to stop drinking a good 90 minutes or 2 hours before we go to bed to help minimize those overnight wakings. But something else to keep in mind is also pelvic floor health. Pelvic floors, as we get older, they become weak. And as a result, we end up going to the bathroom a lot more frequently than we should. So it's not that we're drinking too much water. And it's not that we're not getting in electrolytes. Our pelvic floor is just become a bit more weak. As a new mom, I'm learning about the importance of the pelvic floor here and how having a really strong one is very important for this, especially as a new mom who is approaching 40 years old. My pelvic floor is not that it was when I was 20 years old. So this baby did a number on it. This is the same for all women, whether or not you've had kids at any stage in your life. Just as we get older, it becomes more and more weak. So getting your pelvic floor assessed can really help. Men nowadays, when I go to my pelvic floor PT, I see a lot of men there too. Or pelvic floor weakening as we get older affects men and women alike. So you might want to go get that checked out if you know you are taking inadequate water and adequate salt. Having to get up 3 or 4 times throughout the night is a little bit too much, even to just say it's because of water intake. So I would perhaps talk to your doctor and see if you can get a referral to a pelvic floor PT. All right, everyone, thank you so much for joining me for today's Q&A episode. If you like this podcast and you like these episodes, please make sure to subscribe as well as leave us a review over at Apple Podcasts. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you back here next week with another episode. Bye for now and happy fasting.